Good morning, good afternoon, and evening, baseball fans. Welcome back to the Barstool Baseball Show. It is Carl. It is Friday. It is Chris Castellani. He is sleeveless. You look younger. You look charming, boyish. The hair is tousled. You look as if you just got done filming a Hollywood scene and you were out running.
My goodness. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, the baby face is in full force today. I'm typically not a guy who goes sleeveless. I normally don't have a reason to, but I run a fair amount, and I'll be heading out to run after this. So I appreciate that. But we got a good slate of American League stuff to cover here today. I think that with each week, what makes the baseball season so awesome, and people like to complain about it being too long. No, I love the length. I love how long it is, because with each passing week, it's almost like you're knocking certain teams off from the contenders, pretenders list. And there's a few teams that we're going to talk about today that are still very much in limbo, in the middle of that in-between. So it should be some good stuff.
Yeah, huge slate of topics. I mean, obviously, we're going to get to Domingo's in his perfect game, the 24th. Should be 25th. We are going to talk AL Central. I think we're going to get a little bit deeper into that, carve that up. I want to talk about the Mariners. You know, they're like kind of walking down the Padres plank here.
Yeah.
And then we kind of got dumped on for the power rankings from our Toronto faithful about the Blue Jays. And we probably owe it to give some solid Blue Jays talk, because they've been hot. We're staying in the American League. It's Friday. Okay, let's get to let's get to Domingo German, all-time piece of shit. All-time piece of shit through his 24th perfect game. I don't want to get too far into this guy before I acknowledge the fact that he is a piece of shit.
Yes. This was everything. And look, a perfect game is one of the hardest things to do in sports. I don't care if he's facing a fucking A-ball lineup. It is a very difficult thing to do. And for Yankees fans right now who are celebrating the accomplishment, not going to knock anybody. But as it was going on, I got to acknowledge, and this is so like me being the ultimate pessimist, and I get it, but like something about the entire thing felt weird. One, and I try when I can with sports, with life, with entertainment, to separate art from artists, but in this case, I just kind of couldn't. I'm aware of this guy outside. I mean, even leaving to the side the fact that, you know, he got suspended for foreign substance stuff. It is well documented that this guy has been an abuser on at least one instance. But he was caught once, but in a public forum, surrounded by his teammates. I mean, this was documented.
Yeah, the story is 2019 at CC Sabathia's charity event off-season. Hit his girlfriend, fought, was belligerent, was drunk, went home. Allegedly, no, because it wasn't investigated by law enforcement, but MLB investigated it and gave him an 81-game suspension. More conflict around the house. Teammate had to come over. It's just a shitty thing. And I think the older I get and the more baseball history I consume, the more you're forced to really consider like character of player if you want to talk about, you know, greatness and accomplishment and places in the game. Because there's some great fucking guys that have done amazing things and stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the, this is a fucking this is kind of a moral crossroads here. Great job. Hey, perfect game against the Oakland Athletics. Amazing. Yeah, exactly. Amazing accomplishment.
I also saw it thrown out there. You know what? The team he did it against doesn't matter. It's a perfect game against a major league ball club. They wear major league uniforms in Oakland still. You can talk about how bad the team is. I get it. It's a ridiculously difficult thing to do. Some of the greatest pitchers of all time, most of the greatest pitchers of all time, have never thrown a perfect game. So you have to acknowledge the accomplishment. But yeah, and it's so weird because I know we'll probably get the backlash of people saying this is, it's virtue signaling type of thing. I don't think it's really virtue signaling to take a stand on domestic abuse. Like, I think that's a universally accepted, like I'm not going to approve of that, and I'm not going to approve of that behavior at all. So it made the whole thing. It was a West Coast game. There were like 10 people in the crowd because it was Oakland. It was a weird thing. Like the last one that was thrown in Major League Baseball was Felix Hernandez, right? And that was day game against a Rays team who was at the time was quite good. At home, King's Corner, Dave Sims doing the play-by-play. Like, that was a magical baseball moment. People will remember that one, and they'll remember Matt Cain, and they'll remember Roy Halladay. Something about this one, it felt like 5 years from now, we're going to mention, hey, Domingo German threw a perfect game, and people are going to go, oh, shit, that's right. Yeah, he did throw a perfect game. I don't think it's going to have the lasting legacy that some other ones did, in part because of when it took place, where it took place, and in part because of the pitcher that did it. So you have to tip your cap to the accomplishment. I understand, but yeah, it was kind of a weird feeling because we've seen a lot of pitchers come really close in the past, and I've rooted for them to finish the job. Last night, I'd be lying to you if I wasn't like, no, I'm not going to lose sleep if they get a hit here. And that's usually not like me, but it's one of those rare exceptions where I had to be like, I just don't like the guy. And so it made for some very bizarre circumstances.
If you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding up a book called Almost Perfect, written by Joe Cox, a great baseball writer. And the book documents the 13 instances pitchers got 26 outs. It's remarkable, heavy shit.
I was going to say, it's got to be, I'm sure it's great, but that's got to be a depressing read.
Well, a lot of these guys, like Ernie Shore's story is great. Ernie Shore pitched for the Red Sox, 1917. Babe Ruth got kicked out of a game. He came in relief and put everybody down. Does not get a perfect game designation. And before then, they didn't even know what those were called. This is going back. So it wasn't until, I believe, the 30s or the 40s or something where they came up with the idea of, like, this should be memorialized. And what's the difference between a no-hitter and a perfect game? Now, there's 24 all time. You rattled off a couple. There's no one that could be more unforgettable than Philip Humber. However, in that same vein, Phil Humber and Mark Burley had both put together perfect games within, do you remember the window? Do you remember the time frame?
Okay, Burley's was 2009, and I think Umber's was 2012, because in 2012, we had a month in which we had three, I think. Or I think we had three in a 2-month span where we went Doc Holliday, Umber. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Doc Holliday was 2010. It was Umber, Matt Cain, and Felix Hernandez all did it in like a 2-month span, and then we had to wait 11 years for the next one. Holliday threw his in 2010. It was a few years apart, but they were obviously both White Sox pitchers that did it.
There was a moment there after the steroid era and before the 3-outcome era, or whatever history describes this era as.
Yeah.
Where pitching really dominated. I think complete games were probably way higher than they are now. Pitch totals way higher. Guys throwing 220 innings a season. Teams having multiple guys throw 200 innings a season.
Yeah.
That was a great time. When the Giants and the Royals were rattling off World Series championships, that was the heyday.
Yeah.
Perfect games, I'm saying.
For sure. I mean, I think about it nowadays, it's so difficult. I mean, to me, if a guy throws a complete game shutout nowadays, it's almost celebrated like it is a no-hitter. I mean, it's like guys lead the league in complete game shutouts with 2 at the end of the season nowadays. So, I mean, the fact that in terms of pitch count, which people pay attention to religiously nowadays, and just the innings, you don't want to tax these guys too much. To see a perfect game, it is, look, to knock the accomplishment is insane. It's a remarkably difficult thing to do, and you got to give them credit for going out and doing it. But I think if we're just ranking like memorable perfect games, I don't think it'll be one that stands out in the grand scheme of things in baseball history. Like even Gallaraga, who technically came up short, depending on who you ask, that one is substantially more memorable than German. I mean, that one, you could argue that's the most memorable perfect game ever, and it wasn't even a perfect game. Because people still talk about it.
If you want to give more context to that as a Tigers fan, I think now would be a good time.
Yeah, no, I mean, because it's been 13 years now since that happened. Gallaraga, obviously famous, 26 up, 26 down, final out, ground ball to Miguel Cabrera, play at first, runner was out. I believe it was, this is a good trivia, Jason Donald, I believe, was running to first base there. I'd have to double check. Called safe by Jim Joyce. I've made TikToks about this. I've talked about it in the past because at the time, Jim Joyce was public enemy number one amongst everyone in Detroit, and really a lot of people in Major League Baseball. When I look back on it nowadays, I'm mad at Major League Baseball because I find it embarrassing that in 2010, there was no semblance of an instant replay system in Major League Baseball. That's what bothers me. Jim Joyce made a serious mistake. That was dumb, and he owned up to it hours later. He said, I kicked the call. I mean, the guy was in tears. the next day. Like it really broke him up, which is sad because Jim Joyce was well regarded as an umpire. So it bothers me that there was no fail-safe in place. And I know that instant replay is an imperfect system, but I'm really glad it's there in Major League Baseball. And it's
so you think it's Major League Baseball that would be holding up that replay system in 2010 is an interesting perspective because I think Selig's the commissioner still, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry to, and I'm just my understanding and experience is that the umpires union is just so strong that they're like, yo, dude, fucking replay, bud.
Really? Okay. Well,
that's like, I would say like the reasons that certain stuff gets held up is because umpires and players. But I could be wrong. It could be a TV thing. It could be a functional thing. It could be Bud Selig being a. Because you know what, this is a good question. Because as a passionate Tigers fan in 2000, like that perfect game could have meant. That's a good perspective to go back and look and be like, why didn't we have replay in 2010? Because they had replay. The Tom Brady tuck rule is what happened. Like when was that? 2001.
The 2001 season. I think it was January of 2002. So we're talking like. I was 7. And I remember when Big Ten was actually the first football conference to get advanced instant replay. It was 2004. And so we're talking 6 years exactly. We're talking 6 years after that, in which it had now, at that point, it was nationwide in college football. It was league-wide in the NFL. You had some sort of instant replay in basketball across all sports. The last horse to water was Major League Baseball. And ultimately, and this is the sad truth, that moment is kind of what shook him out of apathy. Now, in typical Major League Baseball fashion, we didn't get official instant replay until 4 years later. It wasn't until opening day 2014 when they were like, maybe we should institute some sort of fail-safe here. So when I look back on that now, that's what makes me sad is that if that happened today, easy overturn, we're not talking about the controversy, it's a perfect game. Yeah. Umpires, like all people, and I get it, like he fucked it up. He fucked up the call. But umpires, like all people, can make serious mistakes. That's what ended up happening, and it led to one of the more controversial moments in baseball history. But I at least, like, in the moment, not in the moment, but in hindsight, my heart did kind of break for all parties because it broke up Jim Joyce, and it kind of shattered his career. Gallaraga never amounted to much after that. And that's one thing I find very interesting about perfect games is that there's kind of no correlation between throwing a perfect game and having long-term success. Like, obviously, you have your Randy Johnsons and your Felix Hernandez's of the world, but, a lot of guys throw perfect games and get rocked in their next start. I did a TikTok about this just today, where there's kind of no correlation. So it was too bad that he wasn't allowed to have that moment. There have been multiple petitions, including there was a college student a few years ago that wrote a whole thesis about asking Rob Manfred to overturn that play. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But
shot. All those people, kiss my... Whoever that guy is can fucking pound sand. Like, you're a loser. Like, that's such a douche. Like, okay, Rob Manfred, sign this piece of paper. Like, it's a part of baseball history. Jim Joyce blew the call. Gallaraga was great in the moment. I thought they had a great moment. I thought it brought Jim Joyce's, it had elevated his profile as a good umpire. I thought it was a good moment for baseball. I know it's a fucking shitty moment for Tigers fans, but I thought for the sport, because if you said Jim Joyce, someone goes, yeah, MLB umpire, blew the perfect game call. Like, that's a great story to reflect on historically. Although if you're Gallaraga, I'm sure you want the perfect. At this point, though, I'm sure it's water.
They've asked him.
Doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't. Yeah. They've asked him a million times. I remember Scott Van Pelt had him on in the 10th year anniversary and asked him, like, do you want this overturned? Do you care at all about the legacy of this play? And he goes, no. I got a car out of it, and now I get to be the only major league player to ever throw a 28-out perfect game. Big deal. Like, he's living the life now. Like, he's totally fine. I feel like if he felt a little bit more strongly about it, there may be more pushback. But like you said, it's water under the bridge. They celebrated it like it was a perfect game. They came out the next day. They rolled out a fucking car from GM for the guy. He got his moment. It sucked as a fan, and understandably, I get this from Tigers fans' perspective, that we couldn't have that moment, because to this day, there's still never been a Tiger who's done it. But if 13 years later, I don't share the vitriol that a lot of other people share. The last question I'll ask here, and it's a tough question to answer. outside of Don Larson, because that's in the World Series and that belongs in a category of its own. What's the best perfect game, most dominant, greatest perfect game ever thrown in Major League Baseball history?
Okay. I'm inclined to talk about David Wells.
Okay.
Listen, we're like being professionally negligent, not even talking about Dallas Braden, because his perfect game is freaking awesome.
Yes.
Halliday's was just so like dominant.
Yeah. That was as easy as a perfect game has been. I know.
David Cone threw like an 80-pitch perfect game.
He was cruising. I am more inclined, because like I said, all perfect games are difficult. But if we're going off of we're ranking the best of the best. The one that comes to mind right away for me that had the perfect mix of strikeouts, overall dominance, and facing a good lineup, Randy Johnson. Did it at 40 years old against the Braves. It wasn't when the Braves were at their peak in the mid '90s, but they were still that might have been a little bit of that too. But I think I guess if you want to talk strikeouts, I know Matt Cain had the most strikeouts ever for a perfect game. That was when the Astros were fucking dog shit. I mean, it was again still an amazing accomplishment, but Randy stands out. In terms of imagery, Felix Hernandez doing it at home when he was at the height of his powers was really cool. But I might have to do a deeper dive into that to see which one was like the most dominant. But those are kind of the few that in my lifetime that I look back on and go.
Well, what's the highest game score? I'd be interested in that.
I think it might have been Cain's just because of the strikeouts.
How many strikeouts, Chris?
I thought it was 14.
Now the thing with strikeouts is it takes a lot of pitches to strike people out.
Right.
That's what makes the high strikeout games to me way more remarkable. The Kerry Wood 20 strikeout. Yes. The Roger Clemens 20 strikeout. Randy Johnson has what? A couple 19s? He's got a 20?
Yeah, he's got 120 and he had 18, 19. Yeah, it was 14 strikeouts for Cain, by the way. And I think Randy had 12 or 13. He had a ton.
Does Pedro have a no-hitter?
No, he took one perfect game into the 10th inning one time and he lost it. He never threw a no-hitter. Clemens never threw a no-hitter.
Nolan Ryan never won a Cy Young.
Right, he's had through 7 no-nos. Yeah, but not a perfect game because he walked a ton of guys. Yeah,
we got to stop letting pitchers wear 0 too, or just ban that number altogether. It shouldn't be. It has no history in the game. There's no reason 0 should not be in.
0 is a bad baseball number for sure. Yeah.
Now, what if that's a bad idea? I do like the idea of going back 1 through 9. I love the 1 through 9. Where you hit in the order.
Yeah.
You have no fucking clue what I'm talking about, do you?
No, I don't. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, what do I have to force that out of you? You don't know what I'm talking. That's when they invented baseball numbers, so that the New York Yankees did that, so that they knew who was hitting and where you were hitting in the order. So that's why Ruth wore 3, Garrett wore 4. Yes. That was in 1930 so that they could sell scorecards.
Would you have to change numbers? This might be a dumb question. Would you have to change numbers every night then if you batted 7th one night, then batted 9th?
Are you suggesting Joe McCarthy is changing the batting order in the middle of the season? Bro.
Nobody ever.
I want to say it probably wasn't until Earl Weaver in the 70s that people started like, all right, we're going to swap around the order today.
I got analytics brain. I don't take that stuff into account when you talk about it. Because it's like, yeah, you're right. It probably forever. It was just, here's the batting order, and it's just going to stay that way. Yeah. Yeah.
You're the guy. Yeah. You're the guy. That's awesome. That's an awesome part of this. Like the computer, what? No. I've watched all this baseball. I'll tell you who the guy is. That's the guy in left field. And then somebody goes, that guy's hitting 215. The guy goes, take your numbers and stuff them up your butt cheeks. That's my guy. That's great stuff, man. Now, before analytics, Earl Weaver had a shortstop named Mark Belanger, who is defensively rated, now, historically speaking, the greatest shortstop of all time. And Drelton Simmons is close. They are in the same category. It is those two. There is not another. He was consistently hitting under 200. It was like July. The Orioles are in the East Chase and all that stuff. They got great teams. Brooks Robinson, all that bullshit. And they asked Earl Weaver, they're like, dude, what's with Belanger hitting like 160? And he was like, if he doesn't get a hit for the rest of the season, I don't give a rat's ass. He's the starting shortstop, and he's the most important player on my team. He's the most important player in this division. And he meant that. Nah, he freaking meant that. That's without, I don't even know if IBM had personal computing at the time. The guy would just walk around with note cards in his back pocket, with splits on lefties and righties and stuff. Now to see where it is now, a guy takes a 98% efficiency route to the ball. I still enjoy that stuff too. I'm not diminishing where we're at now at all, in the least bit. I don't want to come off as a crotchety old guy. I just really like the narrative, and I like that, historical vibe that comes with the culture around baseball. Like, how do you gain that experience? You sit and you watch and you participate and you just be there and you embrace it and you love it. And over time, no matter who you are, and oftentimes some of the best minds and best decisions and best guys in baseball are so far from being the best players. They're failed players. They're the guys that sit at the end of the dugout, keeping the chart, getting bitched at by the manager because somebody else made a mistake in the field. I told you guys. Like, why are you fucking telling me that, dude? Yeah. Okay. We have a big slate of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We are in the American League show. We're going to do some AL Central. You want to talk about the Guardians. I'm very interested in the fact that the two first place teams are both, at the time of recording, as I understand it, both 2 games under 500.
Correct. Yes. And got to throw the caveat out there as well. Somehow my Tigers are 4 games out of first place right now. Credit to them. They did just split a 4-game set in Texas. That's not an easy thing to do. And they had 3 of their pitchers get injured in the 4-game set. So that was pretty impressive. Torkelson hit 3 home runs in this series. All right. Thank God. Now do it for a month and I'll start to get really excited. But as I want to talk about Cleveland specifically, because you and I have both said on this podcast that we think ultimately this ends with Cleveland probably winning this division. I think the Twins, for the second year in a row, have had numerous opportunities to kind of run away with this thing or at least pull ahead, and they haven't done it. They just got destroyed by the Braves. Now, who hasn't? They're 20-4 this month, but you get my point. They got Baltimore next. This doesn't get any easier. The Guardians right now, they lost today to the Royals, but they're tied for first in the division. They're in first place for the first time in a while. And the reason I wanted to bring them up is I think they probably have the best chance of winning the division. At the same time, there are a lot of rumblings about potentially trading Shane Bieber, and they have proven time and again they have their system and they have their philosophy. They sold high on Kluber and Bauer and Clevenger, all these guys. Carrasco, they sold when they traded Lindor, and they have gotten some pretty good returns back in those deals. They fleeced some teams with those trades. So if you're Cleveland right now, I guess I'm just kind of thinking out loud, what is the best course of action? Do you ship Bieber, get some pieces back, and hope that you can still compete for the division? Do you stand pat? Kind of what's the way to go here? I think ultimately, because of how bad the division is, and this sounds crazy, especially considering that sadly I think Tristan McKenzie is going to be out for a long time. I think they could trade Bieber and still win this division. But I'm just curious what their mindset is right now, because it's not going to be a World Series team, but it could still be a playoff team even with the injuries and the potential trading of assets that they might have at the deadline.
Yeah, so I think if you're going to talk about trading Shane Bieber, especially with the Guardians, you have to understand the contract situation. So, obviously great pitcher, historical pitcher, won a Cy Young. Last year finished 7th, multiple-time All-Star. The year he won the Cy Young, he finished top 5 in MVP voting.
Yeah.
Shane Bieber's 28 years old. He's lost a tick of his stuff. He fits the window exactly as you describe as somebody the Guardians would be interested in moving. Peak value right now. All the points you bring up are extremely fair. He enters his 3rd and final year arbitration this offseason. He just got $10 million this year, which for me is extremely cheap for Shane Bieber and what he's done. He's a free agent in 2025. We talked before about trade deadline and value and contract. So him having a year and a half and arbitration increases the trade value at this deadline. Mm-hmm. Would they move him in the American League? I would be very surprised to see him get moved to the East. I don't know if the Guardians would do that and run into him later if that's a consideration. I think if you talk about the NL East, it'd be very interesting to see it'd be very interesting to see the Phillies emerge.
That would be an interesting one. One team, I don't know what their system looks like. One team I could see maybe making a push is the Miami Marlins. I mean, you have Yuri Perez, who is the biggest stud in the world right now. I mean, Clemmer just is in love with the guy. But he's right. He's 6'8". He throws 100 miles per hour. He's like already established as a number one guy. Sandy's going to end up being all right. There's no way Alcantara is going to finish the year with a 4.9 ERA. He was really good in his last start out. A 1-2-3 of Yuri Perez, Sandy Alcantara, and Shane Bieber. You have 2 Cy Young winners in that rotation and a rookie who's setting the world on fire. They all of a sudden become very dangerous. And that's a good point you bring up about them not trading in the league, because of the 4 big pitchers that they've traded, Carrasco went to the National League, Bauer went to the National League, Clevenger went to the National League. The only one that didn't was Kluber, who only had 1 year on his deal, and the Rangers ended up, that was a disaster. He pitched 1 inning for the Rangers, I believe, before he got injured. So I think they'd be more likely to ship him to the National League. I think one thing the Guardians have done a great job of is that when they trade assets, they aren't trading so that they can be good 2 years from now. When they traded Trevor Bauer, they got back pieces that were good to go right away, including Yasiel Puig, who, I know they didn't win the division, but he contributed, and how fucking shows how quickly time flies in Major League Baseball, because we're talking about 2 guys that aren't in the league anymore. But, I think that they could work this thing out where you trade Bieber, you sell high on Bieber, and you get pieces back that could help you win the division this year, but also help you long term. They've been really smart with that. But I know a lot of Cleveland Guardians fans. My first original popular rant was a Cleveland rant. They're tired of the shipping of these guys. They're tired of not extending them. But at the same time, it is true that when they've traded these guys, with the exception of Bauer, who won the Mickey Mouse Cy Young, these guys have been cooked. Kluber's hasn't been Kluber since they traded him. Bauer's not in the league right now. Clevenger hasn't been the same. So, they have a very good track record when it comes to shipping their pitchers, selling high, and then getting solid returns back. So right now, even with the division being what it is and the standings being what they are, I think it's probably going to end up being advantageous for them to trade Bieber at the deadline.
I hope the Diamondbacks get involved here. That'd be an interesting team. I know this is the American League show, but we're very high on these Diamondbacks, and they could use it. They could use a guy like that. He's pretty chill. They got a really good farm system. Some other names that come up to me when I think about the Guardians: Bo Naylor. He's 8 games into his career. This is Josh Naylor's little brother, top-end catching prospect. Just hit his first career home run. The Guardians have had major issues behind the plate. Mike Zunino's caught some. They brought Cam Gallagher over from the Royals as a backup, who pitchers love, teammates love Cam Gallagher. And you know what? Shout out to baseball for for having a spot on rosters where if you are a backup catcher that pitchers love to work with, that gives you a significant advantage in earning major league playing time. Not diminishing him at all. Just saying they could use some more help, I would imagine, if Bo Naylor's not up to it. But then that's the Guardians. It's like, dude, don't give a shit. Whether you're ready or not, you're playing. Now, Steve Kwan's another guy. He's a guy that has to hit. He just has to hit to carry his value. I'll just give you an example. Last year, 298, 373, 400. 124 OPS plus. This year, 259, 337, 347, 94 OPS plus. Yeah. Being an extremely valuable player to just a tick above average this season. And the difference is marginal. It's really he's hitting more doubles this year too. Mm-hmm. And
I feel like as a team,
walking at a greater clip. It's just not. It's hard to explain. My point is, when you're that limited offensively, the margin for error is very, very small here. And so last year you benefit from having Steve Kwan balling out. He's a guy who gets hot, though. Boom. Miles Straw, also brutal.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal.
Really, everyone on that offense outside of J. Ram has taken, and Naylor, Josh Naylor's had a nice year, has taken a step back. I mean, Jimenez isn't what he was. Rosario isn't what he was. These are still young players. I think they're going to have time to figure it out here. I still like their core, but their big issue, and I think that if they trade Bieber, they're going to try to address this. Their big issue is they do not hit for power. They have two legitimate power threats in J-Ram and Naylor. Even J-Ram I consider like more of a, he hits home runs, but it's more of like
would you consider Josh Bell a power threat with a career 450 slug, even though he's got 390 slug this year, 100 OPS plus? They're paying him $16 million on a 2-year contract, 36 total, I believe, 35 total, something like that. It's weird to put it this way. He can hit for mad pop, but I don't consider him a power threat. Like, power threat to me is like 40. You got 40 home run potential. Josh Bell doesn't have 40 home run potential. He's a good hitter. He's a good hitter who can hit home runs, but he's not. He's not one of the big boppers that you put in your lineup who's going to slug 500-600. They paid him. They don't pay many people.
No. Yeah. By their standards, that's a lot. Yeah.
And I like Josh Bell a lot.
Me too.
I like him a lot.
I like that signing. Yeah.
They are going to win this division.
I think so too. I think they'll back into it. Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say that to a Tigers fan. I'm talking to a baseball guy right now. I'm looking past the Tigers.
We're not winning.
I'm looking the forest from the trees here, pal.
We're not winning the Central. I'm not even entertaining that idea right now. Part of it is I don't want to get my hopes up, and part of it is we're on pace to lose 92 games. I can't look at this and go, hey, man, got a shot in the Central. Well, even A.J. Hinch admitted that this week. He goes, we need to be way more consistent as a team before I even entertain the possibility of us being a playoff team. So, I'm not even going down that road. I do think it'll be the Guardians. I think that I just trust Cleveland's past and pedigree and clubhouse culture more than any other team in this division. And so when push comes to shove, I think they're going to be more likely to come out on top here.
Tito Francona?
Yeah, to me, the best manager in baseball.
Okay.
Yeah. And has been for a while.
Great news, out of the hospital, a little bit of a scare. I guess he got lightheaded before a game recently.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about him as a very successful manager. I don't want to seem callous or cold, though. He did have to go to the hospital. Kind of scary, very scary, really scary.
He's had a few health issues the last several years, and he's kept marching on. I think he's been such a vital part of the Guardians' success that he kind of, I'm not going to say has a lifetime contract, but I think it's one of those every year, if you want to re-up, you're welcome to come back type of things. And I for the time being, I'm glad he's still in the dugout.
Yeah. He says he's coming back. He's managing.
Good.
2023. And then, some health issues before. Bench coach DeMarlo Hale is going to be in his place. He's done this before. We're cheering for Tito Francona. I do want to make these points. So, it is his ball club. And historically speaking, he's just like one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
I'm a big Tito guy. 1980, he won the Golden Spikes Award for the best college baseball player. He hit 400 at Arizona. They won the national championship. He was drafted in the first round, spent very little time in the minor leagues, got up to the big leagues, contact first guy. I think he's like a career 274 hitter. And as soon as he had gotten out of the big leagues, I think he had played for maybe 7 or 8 years, and he had a number of one-year contracts afterwards. As soon as he got done, he got hired by the White Sox in the minor league system to manage. And he was like a 2-time AA manager of the year in the mid-'90s. There's obviously that famous Michael Jordan documentary where he had managed him, I think, for the Barons or something, the Birmingham Barons. He got hired. I didn't know this until I was going through it. He got hired by the Phillies, spent 4 years with the Phillies, never won more than 77 games, finished 5th, 3rd, and 5th in the NL East, got fired, and then got rehired by Theo Epstein and his buddies in 2004. Since he got rehired in 2004, now I believe that's just looking, I believe 18 years, 12 times he's won over 90 games.
Jesus.
And then there's another handful of times, 89 wins, 86 wins, 85 wins. There's only one of those seasons, I should say, of 18 doesn't count because it's the COVID year. And if that did, they had a 583 win percentage, which would have been good for like 104 wins.
Right.
The only time he has had a losing record since getting fired by the Phillies in 2000.
Was it 2015?
No.
No, they finished above 500? Jesus.
They were 81 and 80. They didn't play the 162nd game there. It didn't matter.
All right.
In 2021, Cleveland finished 80 and 82.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Right. Just one game under. Yeah. No, he's been
second place still.
Oh, yeah. No, that division was even shittier that year. I think he's also a manager who overshoots his projected win total almost every season. To me, that's the number one sign of a guy who really knows what he's doing. Like a lot of these Guardians teams, the year they made it to the World Series in 2016, last year, I mean, a lot of instances people said, 80 to 85 wins, and you look up and it's 90 to 95. I mean, I think he's done an excellent job there. The year they made it to the World Series and ultimately lost to your Cubs, they were without Salazar and Carrasco that entire playoff run. Their rotation was Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer, and Josh Tomlin. They had a three-man rotation that entire postseason. And the way that was one of the best managerial jobs I've ever seen. The way he used Andrew Miller, the way he used Cody Allen, the way he managed that bullpen. Those guys ran out of gas by Game 7. But for them to be there, I thought that was incredible on his part. So I've always been a big Tito guy. Yeah, and I think they'll find a way again this year. I don't know how much time he has left. I know he's had a few health issues. But it'll be weird. I don't know baseball without Tito Francona in it, man. Like he's just kind of always been there. Like he's a baseball lifer, 100% through and through. Good personality, rides his fucking scooter to the ballpark. Like just an endearing guy.
Yeah, I'm looking up Spot Rack now. They don't have manager however much he's getting paid, it's not enough. And the Dolans are so rich. Like, if we found out that the Dolans were like, oh, no, we only spend $100 million on the baseball team, then we give Terry Francona $25 million cash every year, and that's where I'd be totally fine with that. It would make all the sense in the world.
Man, that actually brings up, and I know we're kind of all over the place, but it brings up something that bothers me about Major League Baseball. Why are teams so hush-hush about manager contracts? Like, if in the NFL, you sign a coach, you know what he's making. You know how many years he's going to be there. It's like that in every other sport. Why is it we never, with a few exceptions, we never know the length or money that a manager is earning? I don't know. Like last year, everyone said AJ Hinch has an opt-out after year 2. AJ has an opt-out after year 2. And he had to come out and be like, it's not fucking true. Like, I want to be here. Why do they never announce how long somebody is under contract for?
Because they don't have to.
But do you have to in the NFL?
The NFL has this weird PR vibe because they were late to the party. And they're very structured and organized in how they... It's just so weird to me to compare these two leagues, but let's do it. Okay, so Major League Baseball, like, the fact that they play every single day and you're just rolling along. There's the inside culture. The beat writers know who's getting paid what. Like there's enough of that. And historically speaking, the owners have such utter control over everything. And I think it's within manager culture, like probably not to talk about it, not to be like, for instance, Joe Madden during his tenure with the Cubs opened up a restaurant on the property of Wrigley Field. Mm-hmm. Okay, Tom Ricketts owns that property. The restaurant was Joe Madden's restaurant. I don't believe that Joe Madden hired a commercial real estate broker, went out, evaluated the market for a place to put a restaurant, and it just so happens to be the best spot for his culinary taste was Wrigley Field. I would imagine that part of his compensation was like, hey, Joe, we're going to throw you 10,000 square feet. We're going to bring this chef in. We're going to put a menu together. You know, you'll have your flair on it. Like, that's how far and willing I think some owners are able to go with their managers. The guy who brought in Ozzie Guillen, the art collector from Miami, Jeffrey Loria, I'm pretty sure that guy just, like, gave Ozzie Guillen, like, $25 million worth of art. It's a good question, though. So you don't know how much AJ Hinch is getting paid?
I don't believe so, no. And I don't know. How much he's getting paid doesn't matter to me, really. I'm more interested in, we never really know the length of deals. Because there's been concern from the second AJ arrived in Detroit. Is he going to bolt at some point if they don't upgrade the roster? You know, Dusty Baker's no spring chicken. Could he end up going back to Houston? And I've said I would be concerned about that if I knew how long he was under fucking contract for, but I don't.
Not bad work if you can find it.
No, definitely not.
David Ross is probably getting paid a buttload. This is the American League show, though. We're going to go out west. I want to talk about the Seattle Mariners. A.J. Pollock's got a 44 OPS plus.
Yeah.
I can make fun of him. He's a Notre Dame guy. He's smart. He has a good degree. He's made a ton of money in the major leagues. They are not very good. And I predicted some regression for him. I'm not taking a lap on this one because it's only, we're getting into July here, but I will take a quick lap because they are regressing.
Yeah, no, I'd say have at it because, like I brought up at the beginning of the show, we're at a point where with each passing week, it kind of put pins in which teams might be legitimately out of this race. I'm kind of there with the Seattle Mariners right now, and they've had some bad luck losing Robbie Ray. Tommy John's obviously devastating, but that's not the issue with them. That's what annoys me is I love their rotation. I think Luis Castillo's such a dog. I love watching that guy pitch. I know that these guys are young, but I love Logan Gilbert. I like George Kirby. And even with the loss of Robbie Ray, I'm like, I think that they can survive this. I like the job that Scott Service does there. Last year, they had good vibes when they had that hot streak in the middle of the season. I think they won like 13, 14 in a row going into the All-Star break. And that continued. You found your franchise player in Julio Rodriguez. And it's almost as if, J-Rod is one of the only ones that's actually in his sophomore season. It feels like the whole team is having a sophomore slump. Like if last year was the breakthrough year, this is that second year where you just fall below expectations. Because last year they got production from a lot of guys. I mean, J-Rod was like a top 10, 15 player in baseball. Cal Raleigh had a good year. Ty France had a good year. Pitchers were solid. Bullpen was solid. And even the year before, they only missed the playoffs by a game. It just seems like something's just gone wrong. I think in large part is the offense just hasn't been good. The offense has not been productive. Julio Rodriguez, who was the revelation of all revelations last year, has taken a substantial step back. I think he's going to be fine. He's still very young. He'll figure it out. But it is very disappointing because last year was really a great season for them. And it was a wonderful story seeing them turn things around the way they did, making the playoffs the first time in 21 years. And it felt like coming into the year that they were going to be in the thick of things again. I think what I overlooked and what a lot of people overlooked is the fact that they kind of came into this saying, we like the core we have. Let's kind of stand pat, whereas a team like the Rangers, and even the Angels to a certain extent, said, let's add pieces. I feel like the Rangers just didn't do enough. Now, does that potentially, they have the money to do it, potentially open the door for a big-time push for Shohei Ohtani? We'll see.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're going to have a legit pitch to try to get him. But right now, it is disappointing to see what's happened in Seattle because I like that team. I like that fan base. I like a lot of their players. We've just seen some regression. It reminds me to make another AL West comparison of the Astros in 2016. In 2015, they had that year. They made the playoffs. Wow, Correa's here, a franchise player. Altuve's doing his thing. Keuchel wins the Cy Young. They make the playoffs. Almost beat the team that went on to win the whole thing. And then the next year, everyone is saying World Series are bust. They're gonna come out of the American League. They won like 84 games, and a lot of guys regressed. Then the next year, they all found it again. I think we might get something similar to that in Seattle. It's just one of those years that you're probably going to forget right now. And for the record, they're not completely out of it. But I just don't see where the production is going to come from unless guys just turn it on.
I mean, there's 3 wild card spots for sure. But when we talk about the Seattle Mariners here, we weren't talking about them as a 6th team in as the American League. We're talking about them as a pennant. We're talking about a team that competed against the Astros last year down the stretch, gave them a series. So I think it's fair to say they're still in it 100%. I'm not putting a fork in them. They're just walking down this Padres plank of, why aren't you guys better? We expected more. Your fan base wants more. People want more. And there is this sense of if they really took steps forward, then that pitch for Shohei Ohtani is much, much easier. If you could roll out an ALCS in front of these crowds, you just saw it with one game there. The place is absolutely crazy. They can't hit right-handed pitching. I don't know if you've looked at these splits, but the Seattle Mariners, they're fine against lefties. Yeah, great, because a lot of your big thumpers are righties. You're asking Cal Raleigh to split around, and he's a switch hitter. I mean, he's got great power from one side. He's above average. He's playing okay. But Teoscar Hernandez, who's about 110 OPS plus, I think he leads the team in home runs. If you want to call that a great trade, fine. If you want to say it was a good trade, knock your socks off. Mitch Haniger 2.0, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Go right ahead. They just don't, Adam Frazier could have been that guy. He's not. He wasn't. Yeah. He's gone. J.P. Crawford's not a threatening lefty bat.
No. Great
Jared
defense.
Kelenic has been sensational to start the season. Cooled. He's only 23, I understand. But, man, they could really use a solid veteran lefty, and not even maybe a power, but even if it was just a great doubles hitter.
Yeah. Ohtani would fill that void for sure. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I just think that they're lacking explosiveness offensively, and that's really as strange as it sounds because they got swept. They were in every one of those Astros games in the playoffs last year. What ultimately ended up killing them, they blew the lead in Game 1, but in those last 2 games, they just couldn't get productive hits when it mattered. Frommer pitched well against them. I think they scored 2 runs in Game 2. They scored 0 runs in the 18-inning game in Game 3. I feel like that was kind of a sign of things to come. They just haven't been able to find any sort of offensive rhythm this year. And while maybe Gilbert and Kirby haven't been the aces that they might emerge to be at some point in the future, that hasn't been what's done them in. They've just have not had the offense production that they've needed.
Sad because they're hosting the All-Star game this year, and that city would be buzzing if they had 48 wins as opposed to they got 48 losses.
Yeah.
It's not a great team right now.
No.
Room to grow, though, guys. It's only June. It's June 29th. 41 losses. I should be come on. If you're a Mariners fan, slap me around for that one. We should get a Mariners fan in here after the All-Star break or leading into the All-Star break. That's what we need. We should talk about the Blue Jays.
Yeah. Just for
let me tee. Yeah, I do want to tee this up just for a little bit because I know there was some buzz about Alek Manoah. It's just kind of a sad situation with what's going on with him. And at what point do we stop? At what point do we start feeling bad for this guy, or do you already feel bad?
I already do. I was not, and maybe it's because I don't root for an AL East team, but I was not on the fuck Alek Manoah bandwagon. I loved Alek Manoah last. He's one of my favorite pitchers to watch, and I did say when we recorded this podcast a few weeks ago that the issues that are bothering him right now are not things that he's it's going to take an off season in which he revamps his entire body, his workout routine, all that shit to just kind of get right again. Now, even with him being sent down, the possibility of him giving up 11 runs to fucking teenagers is bananas. Like that, honestly, I don't care if you hate the guy's guts. That is you have to empathize a little bit. The fact that a year ago at this time, he was on top of the world. He was pitching in the All-Star game. He was the dude. And now it's just now I do find it sad. And it's not only had a severe impact on him, I think it's completely changed the outlook of the Blue Jays season. I mean, if he was Manoah from last year, they'd be competing for that division right now. And instead, they find themselves kind of on the outside looking in.
Yeah, the exact story. I'm sorry, I should have made this clear from the beginning when I talked about Alek Manoah. He made his first minor league, rehab start or whatever, because he hasn't been very good.
In rookie ball.
Correct. Rookie ball, which is mostly 17 to 19-year-olds.
Yes.
Guys that have never hit with wood bats before.
Yeah.
He did not make it out of the 3rd inning. He surrendered 11 runs on 10 hits, including 2 homers and 2 walks. I give the Blue Jays manager, John Schneider, a lot of credit for saying that there was a lot of positives to take away, though. When you look at his delivery, his tempo, and his velocity, a lot of positives to take away. The rest of the stuff you can kind of take with a grain of salt, he says.
Yeah.
Okay, John. Players manager, sure, but that's really protecting a guy. Hey, Are you kidding me? Hey, our all-star dominant #1 dog and pony we're running ourselves in October with, we thought, our first round, the baddest dude in the AL East, if you asked him, is just got shelled in 2 1/3 rookie league. Oh.
What that tells me is that he's aware of the fact that mentally this has just completely torn him down. And so I think that to go to the media and say, he's struggling, I just don't know what to say, it would only add to that. There's no way he actually believes that. I'm you can't. You can't give up 11 earned runs and be like, hey, we saw some good things. I think he's trying to protect his player, but this is going to be a story now the rest of the way. I guess just to put the hypothetical out there, how do I frame this? By 2024, April of 2024, will Alek Manoah be on a big league roster?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to lead towards yes as well. But because
in September of 2023, will he be on a big league roster?
I say no. I don't think he pitches in the bigs the rest of the year.
September.
Unless they are completely out of it and they're playing meaningless games and say, hey, let's have him get some reps in. I don't see them tossing him out there in a meaningful situation if he continue. Now, if he really finds it and starts dealing, then it's different. But right now, I think he's put himself so far back.
Sure, do you think he can do that? He's got 2 months. He's got 2 months to get himself in a position where the Blue Jays can be like, hey, we're 3 games up in the wild card. We're pretty much locked in on this. We got the A's are in town. Look at this guy. I don't know. Yeah. Somebody sucks. They're in town. Do we want to give Manoah a couple innings? Because we know, do you think he has that in him over the next 60 days to get back to that level? Or do you think 11 runs, 10 hits, Schneider's pumping his shit in the media, just put a fork in this dude, come back in spring training? Just now, leave. Go play golf. Go hang out with your friends. Get your mind right. This is what it's like to get your fucking tits lit.
I think that's more likely. I think he can turn it around. I do not think that he will turn it around.
I agree. I think it's more likely than that. I think to ask this guy to come back, if you're a Blue Jays fan or you're anybody, if you're sitting on his fantasy team, sorry guys, this is not he's got a bad toe. This is deep-seated lane meatballs.
Yes.
Now, how much can we really blame a pitch clock? And if we are going to blame the pitch clock to this extent, can we say the pitch clock is entirely responsible?
Yeah, I can't. I don't think it's entirely pitch clock. I think pitch clock is a factor. My theory, and I don't want to speculate on what it is there is something much, much deeper that he's dealing with that has not become public yet. And I have no idea what that is. I don't even want to speculate on what it is.
Interesting. But why is he pitching in rookie ball right now?
Why? Well, why is he pitching at all, you mean?
Yeah, I'm saying, it can't be that bad if he's out in rookie ball against 17, 19-year-olds.
Well, maybe the organization doesn't know about it. Then maybe it's something that's been kept under wraps. He can't pitch. He's getting lit up in rookie ball. I don't know. Sometimes these things are undisclosed and then they come to light much later. So that's kind of my mystery box theory here, because him falling off is not shocking. Him cratering towards the Earth's core is very surprising.
I like what Marcus Stroman said. He's talking shit to haters. He put on Twitter, I can't wait for Manoah to get back to the MLB and make all y'all eat your words. All you clowns hating on another man is just a projection of your own problems. He's pissed. Times like these are when true athletes are transformed. Now, I do believe in that. I think Alek Manoah has. Now, he has to make some kind of conscious commitment here to go be that bulldog. He could be fighting some stuff in his head where it's like, man, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe it was a sham. Maybe it's because these guys hadn't seen me. Maybe he did just loses the feel on his slider. That could be a problem. That could be a problem. If you get to the big leagues and you don't know how you got to the big leagues, that could be a huge problem.
Yeah. No, I mean, but again, it's if he lost his slider and was putting up an ERA of 4.5 at the big league level, then I'd say, okay, he's lost feel for his slider. He's got to find it again. When you're talking about his last major league start, he couldn't get through one inning and is currently getting rocked in rookie ball. It has to be something deeper. It has to be. I don't know. It is as fascinating a drop off as I've seen, and I also want to add, and I've added it on here before. I'm really rooting for him now. I want him to be back and be confident and be throwing downhill the way that he was last season and even the year before in his rookie campaign. It's going to be a story worth following, because it could end up being an awesome feel good story.
Oh, Disney's already talking to his agent about the rights.
I hope so, man. I hope so. It'd be great. Roy Halladay 2.0. Why the hell not?
Other notes on the Blue Jays.
They're the most bipolar team in baseball, and it drives me nuts. I think the series that they're playing against the Giants right now proves that. Last night, Logan Webb, damn good pitcher. I mean, got a little bit of Corey Kluber in him with that sinker-slider combo. 5 runs, popped him in the first inning. The night before, Giants use an opener. They go to Alex Wood after the first inning. Alex Wood's got an ERA of 4.6. They get shut out. That offense should never get shut out. And so they're one of those. I'm definitely not putting a pin in them because I know what they can be, but they are the number one team in baseball to me. That is a prime example of a team that is not as good as they should be. And this is the second year in a row that this has happened. I still think ultimately, I bet it's a 90-win team that finds their way into a wild card spot. But man, what's missing? Because I look at that roster and I go, that guy's good, that guy's good, that guy's good, that guy's great. The way they've assembled things here, I do it all over again. It just doesn't seem like they're coming together as a unit the way that I wanted them to.
Really?
Because I thought that this was going to be a World Series caliber core for like a decade. 2 years ago when they just missed the playoffs, I'm like, Jesus, they're going to be with this rotation and they're spending money and they have a great young core.
Yeah, they have a great 100%. No, dude. Yeah. Dude, you're not the only person who thought the Blue Jays were going to be awesome. I mean, they do have a great young core. I'm saying, are you saying that you're kind of, I'm going to ask you, are you out on the Blue Jays?
No. I'm not out on them, but
They are on pace to win 89 games right now.
Right. I
do think that involves a not so great start. Chris Bassett's getting his fucking shit pumped by lefties. Obviously, you've got the issues with Alek Manoah. Now, think of how bad he's been, and if he was even fractionally what he was last year, now you're not talking about a team on pace to win 88 games. Now you're looking at a team on pace to win 83 games. Bo Bichette steps up. Matt Chapman's been outstanding. Now, the problem, this Varsho trade.
Yeah.
Now, if he gets a little bit better, he's dynamic. I'm just throwing stuff out there because at what point is baseball fans? Because I'm buying in what you're saying. But as you're going, I'm like, yeah, you're right, dude. Like, why aren't the Blue Jays better? Wait a second, dude. Remember the Braves in 2021. Remember the Phillies in 2022. Because all it takes is a little bit of run, right time, good momentum. They have all of those pieces. They certainly have the pieces for that. Gossman can pitch at the top of the rotation in a playoff series. Jose Barrios is interesting because 4 out of 5 starts, he's magnificent. It's just there's one start where boom, and that's what you remember when you talk about him. You're like, I don't know if I ever liked that guy, but then 4 out of 5 starts, he's out there, quality stuff. I'm sorry to just derail this. What I'm trying to say is, I think we could sit here 2 weeks from now and talk about the Blue Jays as a top 3 team in baseball.
Because they're a sleeping giant. We know how talented they are. So to me, they are every bit as capable of winning their next 10 as they are of losing their next 4 or 5. They've just kind of had that roller coaster ride for the last few years. I think the Phillies from last year is a great comparison because the Phillies for several years before 2022 were spending money. They had a core that you looked at and went, this is a pretty good lineup, good pitching. And then finally in the second half of last year, it just came together. Maybe that's what happens for the Blue Jays because I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined 2-3 years ago that at this point the Blue Jays would be looking up at the Baltimore Orioles in the AL East standings. Now, credit to Baltimore. They've fucking built an awesome core and Michael Elias has done a great job. But when I watch Toronto, they're kind of a tease to me because I know how good they can be. And if they find that spark, we're not talking about a team that can win that division. We're talking about a team that can win the whole fucking thing. Legitimately. I mean, they have enough talent to do it. You're just waiting for that outburst, and with each passing day, I'm like, when's it going to happen? I don't know.
Okay, let's go. I want to go back to the West real quick. This is the American League Show. Subscribe. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. I want to go back to the West. All-Star Game stuff's announced. Congratulations to the Texas Rangers. Yes. They have, I believe, four starters in the infield between, what is it, Seager, Simeon, Lowe, and Young?
Seager, Semien, Heim, and Josh Young.
Excellent.
Heim got the nod at catcher. And you know what? A lot of Adley Rutschman fans are upset. I'll have to check the numbers, but offensively, Heim's been fucking electric, dude. He's been great.
It's hard to get a start in the All-Star game, man.
Very hard. You need a combination of a great season and a lot of fan support.
And this is a big strike for Orioles fans because they probably thought Adley Rutschman would get 15 starts.
Yeah.
No, Heim has been better. Adley Rutschman's going to have to make a decision if he wants to take the bat off his shoulder and start to thump a little bit. I think that's a problem he's going to have to run into because take all the walks you want, and that's very valuable for that team. And you can be an extremely valuable player like that. However, if you have the ability to thump and be a big bat in the middle of the lineup, that's more valuable.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it was right around, and he always had power, but when Buster Posey came back from the leg injury in 2012, he's like, oh yeah, I can hit 25 home runs if I want to. And he won the fucking MVP. I think Adley's going to have, for his sake, and I do think this will happen, a similar career arc.
Sure, he'll lock into that. He'll make that conscious decision. He's good enough to, at what, 20, was he 23?
Oh, he's so young, yeah.
He's 23 and he's leading Major League Baseball with 52 walks. He's got the highest walk rate in baseball.
Yeah, he'll be just fine.
I just don't, slugging 411 ain't cutting it, pal. Like Nico Horner slugging 411. Okay, last thing in the West, congratulations to Shohei Ohtani. Why am I saying congratulations to Shohei Ohtani? Is he leading Major League Baseball in home runs?
Oh, yeah. Kind of running away with it now. He homered again today.
29, I believe.
Yeah. He's going to have 30, I think, before the halfway point, or at least before the All-Star break. Is this right now the greatest season you've ever seen? Because to me, it's not, right now, it's not close. Because the closest I can think of in my lifetime is probably Bonds, the year that he had the on base of 600 or something, but Bonds didn't pitch. This is he is putting himself in a category, and we're talking about a game that's been played forever, in a category that doesn't exist. He is an entity in and of himself at this point. A few nights ago, he homered twice, went 6 1/3, gave up 1 run, and struck out 10. That was Carl, that's the greatest performance I've ever seen. That's impossible. It is scary that he is getting better. When he had the year he had 2 years ago in 21 and won the MVP and deserved it, I remember thinking, that's one of the most impressive seasons I've ever seen. I kind of feel like we aren't going to, I feel like this is his peak. He's been better the last 2 years. This is crazy what he's doing right now. He is the most talented player in the history of Major League Baseball. He is. Is he going to end up having the greatest career, highest WAR? No, but this guy is doing things on a nightly basis that none of us ever expected anyone would do. The MVP is his already. He's got a 6 WAR already. It's crazy. It's just flat out crazy.
I want to see him play the field.
Really?
Oh, it's the only place he has left to go for me. I want to see him trot out the right field.
Would you if you're the organization, would you let him do that though?
If it were up to him, he'd be playing shortstop or third base every single night.
True. But organizationally, you're getting enough value. What's the only thing you kind of risk is potential injury if you haven't played the field.
Yeah, 1 year, $30 million this year. He's not coming back to the Angels.
Okay, that is fair.
What a wrinkle in September if you see Shohei get some reps in right field. And then they can get another bat in DH.
Yeah.
Did I just talk us into a strategy where the Los Angeles Angels drastically improve their lineup come playoff time? It's pretty selfish if he would be the greatest right fielder Mookie Betts. I don't want to disrespect. Now that's mean to Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is one of the greatest right fielders of all time. He's not Roberto Clemente. He doesn't have that crazy bazooka arm. It's a very good arm. Probably the best release in baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Mookie.
God, I see. This is what happens. I casually bring up Shohei Ohtani. Now I'm just thinking about him in a depth chart.
It's crazy. Right. He's 2 great players in one.
Last thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Bombs away is a prop bet.
Yes.
And it has been so hot I can't even talk about it, and I can't. It's the hottest thing of all time. It is up 25.7 units on the season. It is June 29th. I am up almost 26 units in baseball. This thing's out every day now. We're taking advantage of the fact that there's nothing going on in the calendar. There's baseball every night. Bombs Away is on the exclusives tab of the Barstool Sportsbook app. I encourage you guys to go check this out. It's 4-0 this week. It's just an unbelievable heater. Tonight was 2-1. the Blue Jays, the Astros, the Mets, all to hit a home run. I don't know what more to tell you guys other than please just go check. This thing's so freaking hot. I don't care if we turn it ice cold right now by bringing everybody to it. If we have to cool it down for a week just so I can bring everybody to the water, this fucking thing's been red hot all season. And I know we're pricing it right, guys. I'm working with the Penn National guys every day, putting the thumb out in the air, getting a little wind, feeling the humidity, a sense of the smoke. I haven't been put back by these brush fires at all. If anything, I have taken advantage of the diminishing air quality to find those pockets where the ball travels, and we've been red hot this week. It's bombs away. I tweet about it. I probably should do a better job on Instagram with it. But to be honest, I'm 36 years old. I don't think that much about Instagram. I really don't. I should do a better job of thinking about stuff. So I'm thinking about bombs away right now. I'm telling you guys, check that prop out. It's under the Barstool Baseball Exclusives tab. Just back me. Go check it out. 25.7 units. 25.7. If I was up 25.7 units over like a 8-year period of time, I could tout myself as knowing my shit when it comes to betting baseball.
Yeah.
We got bets going, guys. Check this out. Hit Parade 2. Check out Hot Ice Daily Programming with Rico. I'm not rambling to ramble. I'm just getting my programming, my internal notes, and I should open the show with this stuff. We're getting better every week here, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, big guy?
No, I'm all set, man. Keep following Barstool Baseball.
Standings check. Tigers are
4 games back.
All right. Going into July.
Yeah, I know, right? Meaningful baseball, technically.
This is the Barstool Baseball Show. This is the Friday American League Roundup Show. Subscribe to YouTube. Share the show. Say something nice to us. We're around. We'll be back on Monday with the Power Rankings. Until then, we'll see you guys next time.